It's all about the brows today, and I've had a request to do just a video on how I've been doing my brows lately, and I realized that's a great idea because the last time I did a dedicated brow video, I am now actually doing a few more steps than I used to. However, I am going to link that one down below in the description box because I go into detail on also how I like to shape brows in general, guidelines for you that you can have to shape your own brows, which is really helpful if you really don't have many brows left at all and you really need some guidelines to create your brow almost from scratch, if not from scratch, many of you, I'm sure. So I'm going to go ahead and link that down below. I'm not going to get into that so much on this one. So if you're interested in that, then definitely click those links or that link down below. So let's get started on this right away. Here's what I've been using. I've been using the Precisely My Brow Pencil in number 3. I have been following that up with the Foolproof Brow Powder in palette number 3. And the Gimme Brow Tinted Eye Gel in number 4. So if you watched my very first brow video that I exclusively just did on brows, all I used to do was use the eyeshadow, that matte dark brown, and I would fill in my brows with that, finish it up with like a clear brow gel, and that was good, you know. And I had more brows where I needed them back then, you know, it was a couple years ago, and that's all I needed. And over the time, I have needed to add a little bit more. My goal is always to have a very natural looking brow, something that if you're standing right next to me, it looks natural. I mean, I'm sure it's still gonna look like I've had to do something. That's okay. I just don't like a full-on, drawn-on brow look. So it's a little challenging to keep it looking natural the more products that you need to add. But as a mature woman, you know, you may be able to relate to this. Your brows start getting very white. They grow in places you don't need them, and they start not growing back in places you do need them. And so this brow's doing pretty well still. I've lost some brows up top that I really depended on, so that's kind of why I've had to add this step, use the pencil these days. This brow is just turning into a hot mess, actually. I'm losing brows under here where I really like them to be so I can have a very gentle line going to my arch. I've lost those, a few of those that really I depended on. And very, very much so I've lost brows right up in this area, and that's been pretty recent. They're not growing back. I don't tweeze them there. They just fall out and decide, I guess they've had their life and they've been happy and they're not going to come back. So if you can relate to this, and you like a natural brow as well, I hope you find this helpful. I've been pretty happy with my brow routine. It's been a lot of trial and error to get me to this point. Okay, so the first thing I do is I put my brows on the very last. I don't put my brows on before my eye makeup because I end up getting eye makeup up there, and I just like to wait till I get all my makeup on, and then I'll do my brows. So I love the spoolie on the opposite end of this because it's very fine and it really does grab a hold of all those little brow hairs. So I just like to really scrub under there. It gets the dead skin cells out of the way. It removes the foundation and the powders that may have kind of lodged in there. I definitely like to start with a nice clean brow. Looks like I need to tweeze a little bit. The other thing you want to kind of pay attention to is if you need to do any trimming. I like to finish my brows with the brow gel kind of almost straight up, and so if I need to trim any, now's the time to do that. I think I'm okay. I think I'm on the verge of maybe needing to within the next maybe week or so, but I'm okay for now. If I comb it straight up, I still have I can tell I have an okay line going there. They're not going up too high or just look disheveled. So it looks good there. So the very first thing that I do after that is I take my number 3 Precisely Brow Pencil, and I'm going to start with this side because I think this is the one that has been the most challenging for me lately. because as you can see, let me get you in a little closer. This is going to be probably kind of scary. But as you can see, I have this line that starts here, and then it just sort of like starts disappearing right in this area. I want my arch to actually be a little higher than where these hairs here are growing out. So I'm gonna kind of start right where I'm losing the hair, which is right around this area. And I'm gonna kind of semi-lightly, not super lightly, but I'm gonna establish a new line with my pencil that where I want that to be. So I'm gonna do that now. I like to anchor with my pinky here. And I'm just going to create that line. So I've drawn a little above where that hair, you know, the actual brow hairs are. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to kind of gently bring it down to where my brow ends down here. And then I'm going to just do some feather strokes. I'm going to fill in where there is no hair with the actual brow pencil. These are waterproof. They do stick around all day, and it's a great way to fake that you have actual, you know, you have hair growing in there. And then I just kind of go very, very lightly in here. And I don't worry too much about anywhere else because I'm going to use brow powder and some of that tinted brow gel as well. So I've established that new line. This side, I'm going to do the same. It's a little easier to do this side because I do have a pretty good amount of brows right in there. I got the shakes today, guys. Okay. So, as you can tell, this one really is drawn because I am missing so many. So, I can make this side look pretty natural, pretty easily. But this one is definitely, because I'm missing so many right in here. So, I just want to make sure that I have fairly close, the same kind of line going on. Don't worry if it's not matchy-matchy, completely 100%. You know, these are sisters, not twins, and you will drive yourself nuts trying to make them exactly the same. Just kind of work with what you got. The end product is going to be very, very close. I can guarantee you. Okay. So that's it for the pencil. Now I'm going to switch over to the spoolie, and I'm just going to take the very tip of the spoolie that still has, you know, some of those little spoolie hairs on there, and I'm just going to go over this with that, just going to mute that line, especially that top line, just a little bit. I'm going to soften it up a little bit, softening that line and calling that good. Now it's time for me to go into the Foolproof Brow Powder. This is in palette number 3. Now with this color here, this is a wig that I'm wearing, and the root color is 12FS12. It's a 12 root. I don't need it to be super dark. I go up another notch when I have the 8 root. For those of you that are wig wearers, you know what I'm talking about. But this one, I'm just going to kind of blend both the front and the back color together, but mostly this back darker portion is what I'm going to depend on. So I'm going to load up my own little angle brush. Now this does come with a little pointy brush. It's like a hard foam. It worked great for the first few times, but then I found it just didn't give me that fine point that I really like to have, especially at the back of the look here. So I stopped using it, and this is just a really cheap Laura Geller. It was in a palette, just something angled and, you know, pretty firm. So I'm going to load that up, and I'm going to start it not in the very front of my look, but here around this area. And I'm going to establish kind of that bottom line and then get this going here. And then without any extra reloading, I'm just going to take it toward the front of my look. So in the very front of this look, I'm going to go ahead and get a little more of this lighter color and just kind of brush upward with it. Loading the darker color and just bringing this right to the end of the look. Not doing a straight line in there. I'm actually kind of brushing it, you know, across and on the skin so it doesn't have just a line, if that makes sense. I'm going to go now over to this side. I think we all have one brow that we struggle less with. This is definitely that brow. I'm going to load a little bit of that lighter color right here in the very front. All right. So now I'm going to again take my spoolie and I'm going to run it through here, softening that application up. Okay, taking a look, so making sure my color variance is pretty equal. And the last thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in. They do have a bigger size of this. This was just what they had at the time. But I love how small this little spoolie is here. This had a learning curve to it. You might get a little frustrated when you're first trying it, but hang in there because I've grown to really love this stuff. And I find that I tend to use mostly the tip of it, especially as I make my way over, you know, to this part of my brow. I make sure that I try to get it on those little brow hairs all the way through here. I'm not just making a line. And then I will lay pretty much the whole thing here right in the front. I'll lay the entire spoolie right in through here to coat those, but then I start using the side of it. Doing my left eye because I'm right-handed is a little more challenging. Most of the time I'll just kind of take it over to this side. Other times I will use my left hand, but I find that I tend to do better if I use my right hand still and I go at it at the right angle that I need here. Again, this is a little tricky because I don't have as many actual brow hairs, and that's what this is doing. This is tinting the actual brow hairs. So I have to be careful because if I go over this too much, it kind of starts erasing the work that I've done with the pencil and with the actual brow powder. So I have to be careful that I try to just really kind of get it on the actual brow hairs and really kind of concentrate it on that. So I'm going to load this up one more time here and make sure that I'm getting it the same intensity of color as the other side. And I do have some days that I can get my brows on and lickety split and do all of this really quickly. I know it seems like a lot of work, and whenever I talk through a tutorial, it takes so much longer than in real life. Sometimes, again, I can just do this, boom, bada bing. I've got my brows on, they look great. Other times, I do spend a little more time on them, and I struggle bus a little bit. It just, I don't know. But the thing is, brows are so important. They really do add so much to your whole face. They add to your eyes. They frame the eyes, and they really give an all-over great look to your entire look. I mean, brows are so important. If they're poorly shaped, if they're poorly done, it's gonna just really bring everything else to a just whole other level. So really nicely shaped brows and really nice soft brows, I think, can make your look They really can. And so I do tend to not mind spending a little more time on my brows. I never like to be so much in a rush in the morning to get out of the house that one, I have to rush through my brows, or two, that I have to rush and put on my wig really quickly. I like to take my time with both of those things. I'll rush and do my eye makeup, I'll rush and do everything else, but my brows and my wig, I don't ever like to rush doing that, because then it can all go downhill. So yeah. Now this does, for now, double as my brow gel as well. This is a tinted brow gel, but I have found that the clear brow gel really just makes everything stay all day. So if I had it, I would probably, after I softened everything up once again with my spoolie like I just did, I would probably go over it with clear brow gel just to make sure everything stays exactly there all day long. So all of these products are made for brows. They're gonna be long staying brow products. Now, I think that's where things can differ from brand to brand. Is, are they going to stay all day? Are they gonna smudge? Will they kind of slowly disappear through the day? Those are things that would cross them off the list if they didn't. These I know stay all day. My brows are gonna look pretty much like this all day long. I can count on it, and that's why I really haven't found the need to experiment beyond and out of this brand, but there are many brands that do that as well. So if you have a favorite brand, I bet you can find brow products in there. So again, if you're like, whoa, you know, I feel like they're just not soft enough, go through it with your spoolie, kind of break things apart, drag it along the skin underneath there. It will lift off the tint that you have on there, the powder, and it will soften things up. If you feel like they're just a little too stark, go through it again with this, you'll be good. So if you're like me and your brows are making it a little difficult for you these days, you're losing them, they're all white, they're not where you want them to be, then you may have to add a step or two to your brow routine as well. I highly recommend it. You know, I think, again, a nicely shaped brow is really going to add a lot to your all over look. And they're not underrated. And I also want to toss out there that if you're wondering and struggling with color and how deep you should go, just remember that technically the natural brow when we're younger is 2 to 3 shades darker than our hair. So while as we get older we may not want to go quite that dark, it gives you an idea of, yes, your brows technically should be a little darker than your, you know, root color of your hair. And if you're all gray or white, take that in consideration. You know, you don't want to get your brows as dark as they used to be before you grayed, you know. So I think a soft look is important. You don't want to go stark black or anything like that. But yeah, so keep that in mind. And if you're a wig wearer, pay attention to that root color, because that is technically supposed to be your natural hair color. So you're going to want your brows to be around there. So, okay guys. All right guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.